Good afternoon, everyone. It is 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the dot. I'm so glad you're here because today we are talking about the three biggest burnout traps I see in my work with high achievers. So those are folks who are at professional services firms, law firms, biotech, a whole range of different professions. Now, before we get into it, I would love for you to drop in the comments the first word that comes to mind when you hear the word burnout. What's one word that comes to mind when you hear the word burnout? You can noodle on it a little bit and then think about when you hear the word high achiever. When you hear the phrase high achiever, what's the first word that comes to mind when you hear me say that? And whether you're joining live or you're watching this on replay, I want you to just notice what that first word for you is, and then ask yourself and be curious about what that might mean. Maybe it's nothing and maybe it's something, but give yourself the opportunity to explore it. Now, I'm Adivi Vargas. I am a former big law attorney, former biotech executive. I am a certified executive coach, leadership development strategist, and author of the award-winning book, Your Time to Rise. And I help lawyers and leaders work with and lead with more clarity, more intention, and sustainable high performance. This topic we're covering today is not going to be a generic conversation. That's because burnout, when you've been through it and you coach people so they don't get there, or you coach them right after they've recovered enough from it, burnout is so much more layered than what we may think it is. It is not just about workload, especially for people who have been rewarded for being excellent, for being reliable, for being available, for having the reputation of being able to handle everything, even when other people don't see the cost that person pays for that, right? So today, I want to talk about the three patterns that are most likely to keep you stuck, exhausted, and unable to change the course, unable to shift gears a bit, and what you can begin to do a little bit differently. Now, before we get into those three of the biggest traps I see, I want to level set for a minute. Now, I've always been talking about burnout. And if you've listened to or watched other LinkedIn Lives or even listened to my podcast, which is the Humble Rising podcast, you know the different stages of burnout. But I want to make sure that we're talking about the same thing. When I talk about burnout, I'm not saying that you feel tired after 2 weeks of working really hard. That is not burnout. That is you are tired. You need to rest. You need to take advantage of some rest. Burnout is 3 stages, right? The first is exhaustion, which is basically you're depleted, and 2 weeks or a weekend of rest doesn't make you feel like you've recovered. There is this constant, persistent fatigue that you experience. Okay, that's the first kind of sign, symptom, something you need to pay attention to. The second is that you feel a sense of cynicism or detachment. So work that used to feel good to you, or at least you felt motivated by, at least there was some excitement there, that no longer exists. You start to feel resentful, really negative towards your work. What once was like, okay, I'll handle it, becomes, I don't care. Why is this person emailing me? It's a deeper sense of frustration than just the normal, someone's annoying, right? It's a deeper sense of resentment and detachment from the work. And you're thinking to yourself, that this doesn't feel like me. That's not me to not care about my work in this way, or to care about people emailing me and needing something from me. And then the third stage of burnout is a reduced sense of effectiveness. So you feel like you're not really being productive. You feel like you're not as functional. You're not functioning at the same level that you used to. And it's not just that you don't feel like it, it's deeper than that. You feel like you actually cannot be effective. And it's starting to impact you cognitively. So I wanted to make sure we have those 3 stages clear in burnout. We know what we're talking about because, speaking the same language is really important. Now, I want to also highlight that burnout is not just about you work too much. It's not just a workload issue. To be clear, yes, of course, your workload impacts the likelihood of you burning out. Of course it does. The hours you work, the projects you're on, the length of those projects, the intensity of those projects. Client demands, and I smile, but there are some clients who are quite demanding and some who are not, and there are a bunch in the middle, right? That matters. Who you work with and how they operate does significantly impact you. Okay, deadlines matter. How fast are those deadlines? How quick are they? They're all coming at you at once. Your responsibilities matter, impact if you can really prevent burnout, really impact whether you are headed for burnout. All the responsibilities you have, not just at work, but at home. And if you have caregiving responsibilities, all of that matters. I don't want to sugarcoat this, and I don't want to deny that those definitely impact the likelihood of you burning out, right? They are factors, but there's something underneath all of that that we sometimes forget to take a look at or don't want to take a look at. And that is ourselves. Okay? That is ourselves. Because a lot of what I see is patterns of behavior that people can address and adjust, but they don't because it has led to success. It has led to being the person who people can count on, right? Your responsiveness, your reliability, right? People trust you, you're credible. People want you to do the work because people like you because you work really hard and you'll give them what they ask for, right? You understand the standards. You operate at a very high level. You're always prepared. You anticipate people's needs. You are efficient. You are efficient. You always will find a way. You get really resourceful. Who doesn't want to work with someone like that? We all do. And I will say, whatever job I had, I was always in a demanding environment. I was never in an environment, whether it was as a lawyer in-house or, an HR at a biotech company. I was never with people who didn't work fast. I was always in a fast-paced environment. And it's true, when you are around that level of talent, your game, you rise to that occasion. Your own talent, your own ability to perform, you like raise it up a level, right? It's motivating. It can be very motivating and very exciting. And it contributes to that you're here and that you're successful. Now, when I say successful, I mean in the traditional way of defining success. Okay, that's a separate LinkedIn Live about defining success for yourself and what that means. The point here is that there's a pattern of behavior that has allowed you to be successful. But it's also a pattern of behavior that, when taken to its extreme, can cost you so much more than you could have anticipated. And sometimes the cost, that price you're paying, is more than you want to pay. And so now here we need to be noticing and building up some self-awareness and paying a little bit more attention. Okay, so here's the number one, the first biggest burnout trap, because I don't think there's a number one top trap. This is just number one, not ranked in order. Number one burnout trap that I see is waiting for the pace to become sustainable. Now, when I don't think you say to yourself, I'm just waiting for this pace to become more sustainable. I'm waiting for this pace to slow down. And then when it slows down, then I will slow down and all will be well. That is not what's happening. You're not consciously aware of this. This is subconscious. And how do I know? Because I watch your behavior. And that's how I know this is what you really believe. What you really believe is reflected in how you behave, even if it's subconscious. So it sounds to your brain subconsciously like a totally reasonable thing to do. I'll just wait until things slow down and then I'll be good. But your pace, unfortunately, as you know, is tied to the next deadline, the next request you receive, the urgent matter. And I'm going to put a plug in here. Please, if you are a leader, please, if you are a partner at a law firm, please, if you are in charge of anybody else and supervising anyone else's work, please, please do not create fake fire drills. I'm going to be very straightforward. I need you to stop doing that. Manage your time better, manage your energy better, and do not inflict that pain on your team. What it does, it erodes trust. People don't want to work for you. You're like the boy who cried wolf. People don't want to work for you when you cry wolf with the fake fire drill. You know what that means? And then when you have a real fire drill, you're going to have to hope that those people show up for you, right? Leaders that do that, they don't have people who really want to go into the trenches with them. And that's not their fault. It's your fault. So please, if it is urgent, please be honest about that. And don't create arbitrary deadlines. Don't do that. Okay, I had to add that. Sometimes your pace is also dictated by a new priority or a new idea, like something that, this is especially true, I think, in more corporate environments where all of a sudden a very senior leader has an idea and it becomes a rush. So who can execute on this new priority? But you guys had already set your quarterly priorities and your annual priorities and your strategy and your goals. You had already set that. And now we're throwing in more priorities and you're like, okay, how do I know what I need to actually be doing? So you just take it on though. You take it on. You do it all. And you don't control that. You can't control things coming up from above you, right? You can't control what that person is telling you that you need to do. You can control how you respond to that, but you can't control that person and what they say is now a priority that you were not aware of before, that you didn't even know was important before, right? And you say to yourself, and I hear this all the time, I just need to get through this, and then I will rest. I will take a vacation. I will do something different. I will think about this. I will think more about this. I will get support. I just need to get through this because I cannot think about anything else until I get through this launch, this deal, this presentation, this quarter, this month, this week. So after I finish this, then I will tend to that. I will think about it. I will do whatever. The problem is that once you finish one thing, as you know, the next thing is waiting for you with open arms saying, come on, get me done too. That's what happens because your to-do list is often endless. And the things you have to do at work, there's always something else to do. And then you're off to the races and you're still secretly waiting and hoping things are going to slow down for you. Here's the truth. Pace is not slowing down for you. The pace does not manage itself. The pace does not calm down for anybody, right? Sometimes, I call this acceleration. When you are in a new role, you're accelerating. You have to prove yourself. It's true, you do. Let's be honest. You have to prove yourself. You have to show you can do it. You have to show that you're a great leader. You have to do that. Even if you're getting promoted within an organization, or you're going to a new job, new organization, same role or new role, you're going to be in a period of intensity and a period of acceleration. Now, what happens is that should be temporary. Even if you're in a role that you've had for 7, 8 years, 10 years, intensity should be more temporary than it is permanent. What do I mean? I don't mean, okay, there are intense environments. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. I mean, the pace with which you are working can pick up and then it has to kind of come down a little bit. So it's more leveled off. The problem is when the intensity and the acceleration is constant. It's always, always, always happening. It's like being at trial over and over and over and over. And if you know people who go to trial, that is craziness. You are acceleration every single day, not sleeping that much because the stakes are so incredibly high. Can you imagine doing that back to back to back? You literally cannot survive it. Your body is not a machine, right? There's just one example. And so most workplaces aren't going to self-regulate their pace. They're not going to regulate their pace around your capacity and what you need. That's not their job, right? Workplaces are designed to produce outcomes, right? It doesn't mean the workplace is bad. This thing that work is evil, it's not true. It means that the workplace where you work, your organization, your firm, is not always measuring what the pace is costing you. And it's not always adapting on your behalf for you in real time. That's not the job. Workplaces are optimizing for revenue and growth, right? This requires results, efficiency, being excellent, especially if you're at a firm or anything that's focused on client service, where the main financial model is client service. Literally, the way we make money is serving clients. That is a very intense environment, right? But focused on revenue. We make revenue getting clients, doing work for them, doing excellent work for them. So they come back to us, want us to do more work for them. So they refer us to other people, right? That's long-term growth. That's if you're at a firm or any kind of professional services type of environment. That is what workplace is optimized for. The pace will not slow down for you. It will not regulate itself. So here's what you can start to do instead. Look, I'm not going to offer you in 1 hour solutions to all your issues and problems, right? That's not possible. There is no silver bullet here. There is no silver bullet. I can't tell you, do this and you will never be burnt out. Do this and you will get unstuck. Do this and you won't be exhausted. Anyone that offers that to you is lying. There's no silver bullet. Because to change outcomes, you have to change what you think, what you feel, what you believe. Okay, so I'm trying to get you started, get you thinking about things a little bit differently by giving you a set of questions to ask yourself that you can get more curious about in terms of your answers, right? So what you can do is you can stop asking yourself, hey, or telling yourself, when are things going to slow down? Things are going to slow down. I just have to wait for it. Things are going to slow down. Things are going to calm down, and then I can do X, Y, or Z. You're going to stop saying that to yourself, because things rarely truly slow down. Truly slow down. Okay? Because I know you, the second something dries up, you're like, what else can I do? You're looking for even when you have a break, even when you're on vacation in your house, maybe you have 2 days off. You start looking for projects in the house. What can I do? Oh, I have to paint that. Oh, I have to clean that out. You start creating stuff for yourself, even if it's not work related, right? So instead of even co-creating that pace of go, 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 or waiting for work to slow down or the pace of work to slow down, I want you to ask yourself, what has become normal for me? What has become normalized because I've adapted to it? Right? If you were to take a bird's eye view of a week in your life, look at that from an outside perspective. And I love using the third person, so I'll use my name as an example. What has become normalized for Adi V that she has adapted to it, even though she may not have otherwise? When you use the third person, you create enough distance that you can see it slightly more objectively, not totally, but slightly more objectively, which can be really helpful. You can also ask yourself, okay, how can I create 5% more breathing room because this pace is really intense? How can I create 5% more breathing room for myself today? Is there a research-backed reason for 5%? No, there is not. But we know from research and from science that tiny, tiny changes create massive, long-lasting results. So if you start very small, that is what can lead to a more sustainable change over time. So for many people, when they talk about, giving themselves more breathing room or more space in the day, to slow down the pace in a tiny, tiny way, it literally is going for a 5-minute walk. I had someone who told me, no matter what, I take a lunch. I will go get lunch. If that takes 10 minutes and I order ahead, I have to get out of my chair and go get a lunch. Go get my coffee. 10 minutes. I have to get outside, even if it's cold. Maybe that's not you. Maybe it's not about the coffee. It's some other way that you can give yourself a tiny bit of breathing room in the pace you're in, right? How can you create a little bit more space for yourself? Starting small, 5% is very small. And that's the point. Ask yourself, what is within my control and not in my control? Right? What is in my control that I can actually effectuate change with, and what is not? And what is one thing in that realm of my control that I can do differently to make things easier for myself? Notice I did not say easy, I said easier. See, so many of us have this binary mindset. It's either I'm going all out or I'm not doing it at all. Right? I'm either working out for an hour or I'm not going because it's not worth it. And I said this last time on the LinkedIn Live, do me a favor, take 5 minutes, do yourself some 20 push-ups, 20 squats, do 30 tuck-ups, and tell me if you're not out of breath and feel like you've just worked out. The power of 2 to 5 minutes of something cannot be underestimated. We can't think just because we can't go all out on the thing that it's not worth it. It's not true. We have to be okay with a little bit of gray and be okay with that a little. 5%, 10% is better than 0, right? If you are trying to get to 100, for example, and you're at 0, and you say, well, if I can't get to 50, it's not worth even moving forward. But if you do 5, you're a little bit closer to 100 than you were when you were at 0, right? So what do these things look like practically? These are just some ideas from these are some ideas from clients, right? People that have tried these things and they've worked for them. Again, everyone is different. You need to find what works for you, which means you need to experiment. And we'll talk about experimentation in a little bit. How about resetting expectations at home and at work? Again, starting very small. What does that mean? It means thinking about your week. Thinking about, okay, it's not really feasible for me to not jump back online when I get home 3 days a week, right? How about I commit to 1 day a week where I come home and I don't jump back online. Now I can check just to make sure everything's okay, nothing's urgent. I can check my email real quick on my phone, but I'm not going to open my laptop 1 day a week. That's you're resetting an expectation for yourself. And maybe you have to reset an expectation with your partner at home or family to make that happen. Or to find a way to make evenings for yourself a little bit less laptop heavy, right? Or early mornings. I have a lot of clients who like to get on that laptop at like 5 a.m., right? How about that? Thinking about, okay, maybe I try not to do that 1 day and see how that feels. And I'm going to tell you, it is difficult. I'm not going to sugarcoat that either. It is hard. When you have a habit of getting up, I get on my laptop, I do 2 hours of work, I get ready for work, I go to work, and then that's something that's ingrained in you. So when you try something different that is not familiar to your body or your brain, there will be a reaction and you will feel that resistance. I need you to do it anyway. But again, I'm just giving you one example. Another is stop volunteering for all the things. And yeah, I'm talking about the school bake sale too, if you're a parent. Like you're volunteering for the spring festival. Stop. You have too much to do. You don't have time for that. You have to stick with what is mission critical. What are your top priorities? And then everything else gets shed away. And oftentimes that means these quote unquote extra things that you really probably wouldn't do otherwise, you're doing, but you don't have to do, right? And also be honest with yourself about what do you not care about. If you really care about being there every time there's a school event, okay, but then what is the trade-off of that? You have to think there are trade-offs. There are for you. So what are the trade-offs for you? You can let something take a little longer at work. A lot of you are like, wait, what? No, I can't do that. I'm so efficient. I'm not saying don't meet your deadlines. I'm not saying accept the deadline and then blow it. What I'm saying is Oftentimes people will say, when can you get that to me? Or they'll say, hey, can you get it to me on Friday? You may say, hey, is Monday okay? Right? Or don't offer a quicker deadline. If someone is like, hey, you can get it to me, in a few weeks, don't say, I can get it to you by Friday this week. Don't do that to yourself. You're just making it worse, right? Just try to let something take a little longer. It's okay to do that. Try it once and try it with someone who might be amenable to that. Be very careful of who you try things with, okay? Use your judgment. We have to use our judgment at all times. You could also ask for support with prioritizing certain things or rearranging some work you have. Again, from someone you trust. You need to be able to be honest with someone you trust. And I'm going to say it, it may not be the person supervising your work. It may be someone else, and that's okay. You're going to eventually probably have to talk to your manager or whoever's supervising your work, but you want to make sure that you can be honest, which is why you need the trust. And you don't want to feel judged. You don't want to open that up. So ask for support from someone that you trust their opinion, you trust their judgment, and see if you can find a way to rearrange some things to make, again, the pace more sustainable for you, because the pace is not going to change on its own. You need to take control and do that yourself. You can also be very intentional about events you attend. So this is big for my client development folks. If you go to an event and you make 1, max 2 legitimate, genuine connections where you feel like I can talk to this person again. I would enjoy going to coffee with this person. I would enjoy going to lunch with this person. I would enjoy just hanging out with this person, right? And we're talking about really interesting things. I can relate to this person in some kind of way. That's a win. If you meet someone you are genuinely connected to at an event, and you continue that conversation and you build a relationship off of that, what a win that is for you for that event. This idea that you just go to 4 events a week or 3 events a week or 2 events a week, and you just like, oh, I have to go to this conference, and you have no intentionality going in there. You have to know, who do you want to meet? Why? What are you looking for? Why? Why is that important to you? And how are you going to make that happen? How are you going to be strategic about that? We have to ensure that the events you go to are of very high value to you. And being intentional when you're there of what you're trying to accomplish. What is that purpose for you there? And maybe then you don't go to 4 so-so events. You go to 2 a week or 1 a week. I don't think you need to go to a ton of events a week. I think you need to be more intentional about which events you attend and why they are important. And then lastly, another example is stop treating every request as equally urgent and important. Everything that comes to you is not equally urgent and important. It shouldn't be equally urgent and important to you. And I will promise you, not like that for the person sending you the email, right? So ask for clarification. It's not weakness to say, hey, when do you need this? Hey, I can give this to you this day. Does that work for you? That there's no issue there. That's how we, again, try to control the pace of our work. Second trap, turning work into a constant test of your value. Now, this, again, you're not going to say this. We don't say, and when I really went through this much earlier in my career, I wasn't saying to myself, I'm working so hard because I attach my worth to my work. That is not what is happening consciously, but this is what your behavior reveals, right? Turning work into a constant test of your value, to be validated, to be approved of, right? And so for a lot of us who've worked very hard, work has become this place where you keep trying to prove something, whether it's your value to people more senior to you, whether you belong to your peers, right? Whether you deserve a role, like proving, I deserve this role, I deserve this opportunity, I deserve this promotion. Even if you get a promotion or you get an opportunity and your peers are a little jelly, they're a little jealous about it. I deserve that. Then you go into proving, no, it was me and I deserved that. And you go into prove it mode. So you're working your tail off to prove it, to prove to other people that you did actually deserve what you received, right? You're trying to prove sometimes that you can handle the pressure. I'm not weak. I can handle it. I'm just as tough as everybody else. I can handle all of it. Even though like I added 3 children and I can do it all. I added a kid here, a kid there. It's same thing. I'm the same person. I can do it all. I can prove it to you that you're no different from me, but you are different. You are. Even if you have no children, who you are, who you were 5 years ago, who you were 10 years ago is not who you are today. And that's a good thing because then that means you're stagnant. You have evolved and you've grown, right? Or maybe you're trying to prove I'm not replaceable. They can't replace me, although let's be clear. You know, think about your organization, think about your law firm, think about your company, think about somewhere you've worked. And someone who is very senior leaves and everyone is kind of shaken up about it. Oh my gosh, they're leaving. Oh, this is going to be such a big change. And then fast forward 6 months later, it's like they were never there. It's like they were never there. So I don't want you to say to yourself, oh, that means I'm replaceable. Your impact is still there. Okay. Your impact is there. It's felt. And the people that you've led and the legacy you leave behind, your impact is still there. But this idea that you're trying to prove that you're not replaceable is misplaced, right? And maybe you're trying to prove I am impactful. I am effective. I am a great leader. I develop my team. I'm going to prove it. I'm going to make sure people understand that. It's not coming from the right place, right? So this contributes to burnout because when you are in a prove it mode, my worth, my value, that I belong here, that I deserve this, that I'm here and I deserve every opportunity, that I can handle it, that I'm great at what I do. And you keep needing to prove that, which morphs over time as you get more senior in your career, that morphs, but the root is the same. It's prove it, right? When you're in that mindset and you operate that way, every limit you try to set can feel very unsafe and risky to you, right? So if you're not responding quickly enough, you feel like, oh my God, they're not going to trust me. They're not going to think I'm reliable. They're going to think that I'm not responsive. You start thinking, and here's the catastrophizing, here's the worst case scenario swirl coming. They're going to think this of me. They're going to think that of me, that I'm not committed, that I don't want to be here, that I don't appreciate this opportunity. Asking for help starts to feel like it's weakness. That's one of the number one things people share with me. They're going to think I'm weak. They're going to think I can't handle it. And not only just that they're going to think that, I might think that of myself. I may believe that about myself, that I can't handle it. So I'm not going to ask for help. I'm not going to ask to push this deadline, even though it's in advance. I'm not going to ask because then they're going to think this of me. And I may think that and believe that of myself too. And I just can't, I cannot accept that. Right. So sometimes when you're trying to set this limit, it also becomes a reflection to yourself of you and your beliefs. And that feels really scary too. But as you know, the truth is your value is not measured by how far and how much you push yourself, right? You can be excellent, you can be committed, you can be a fantastic leader without losing who you are, losing yourself, without being constantly available, without treating everything like it's a fire drill all of the time and urgent and important. Everything, again, is not equally urgent and important. So what I want to do is I want you to ask yourself, especially when you're in this, when you feel like you're in this place, you may feel like this is coming up for you, or you may feel like something coming up for you right now and you're noticing that, especially if this conversation is starting to bother you a bit, that's where you have to notice. Think about it. What am I trying to prove right now? What am I trying to prove? And to who? Who am I trying to prove this to? Sometimes it's to yourself at first. I think earlier in your career, it's to yourself and to a lot of other people, right? But now, like to who? Like what are you trying to prove and to who? And why is that important to you to do that? This is like from a place of no judgment. You're just asking yourself these questions and being honest is the key. Ask yourself, what am I afraid people will think? Write all that down. What am I afraid people will think of me? Write it all down because it's already in your head and it's taking up so much space and energy and it's creating such a mental load. You might as well get it out of your head, put it on a piece of paper and then look at that and read it. I'm afraid people will think I am X. I am afraid people will think I am not serious about this role, that I am not grateful for this opportunity, that I can't hack it. Write it down. And then look at that. Look at all those statements you wrote and ask yourself, is this true? Go through each statement. Is that true? And you may say, of course it's true. Yes. Is it actually absolutely true? Right? What's the evidence to support that person thinks that of me? How do I know it's absolutely true? This is how we challenge our beliefs and what we think. We just take a look at them. Put a magnifying glass and we take a look at them from all different perspectives. Another question to ask yourself is, what standard am I holding myself to? Now, here's where I want you to pay attention to any kind of standard that is from somebody else. So, someone else at work, someone else you know, and no matter what, you do not know that person's life as intimately as they know their own life. All you have is an image, a perception of their life. So if you're trying to hold yourself to a standard based on your perception of someone else, that's going to be very tricky. And it's not going to be helpful to you. They always say comparison is the thief of joy. I don't know who said that, so if you do know, put in the comments, but it's a very common saying. And it is true that when you try to live up to someone else's standard because you think that's what it is, it robs you of an opportunity to set your own standard that you can live with, that you can thrive with, right? So what standard am I holding myself to? Where did that come from? And is that standard actually required all the time in everything that I do? Right? And if not, where can I adjust a little bit? I don't want to say pull back, but you can use that word too. But like, how can I adjust that a bit? I don't have to be all up in here all the time, excellence all the time. Do I have to, read every single detail of the school's email about my kids? No. Do I want to read every single detail of this document, this contract? Absolutely. I want to put more energy there. Right? I've talked previously in other LinkedIn Lives about being strategic with your energy in terms of the meetings you have each day. And looking at your calendar either that morning, look at your schedule that morning or the night before and think through, okay, for this meeting, I have to be super present. I got to focus on this meeting. This meeting, less focus. It's true. Our brains cannot be intensely focused and have all this energy to pour into every single meeting that are, especially if you have back-to-back meetings. Our brains aren't able to do that because we're not robots. So knowing there are limitations and everyone has them, and you've seen leaders in meetings that you're like, are they even here? Because they're so exhausted energetically. They're like there, but they're not there. So you get to decide in the morning, the night before, decide which meeting really requires my presence and my focused energy. And then the others are not going to get as much. And that's just being intentional. That's just being intentional. And that's how we can start to operate a little bit more intentional each day, right? Start with one day. Again, start small. Starting small is how you're going to get more sustainable, long-lasting results or adjustments. The third and final trap is waiting until a boundary feels easier to enforce. I know. We like things that are easier. We do. We work really, really hard, right? But we like certain things to feel easier before we do them. We want to feel ready. And a lot of you already know this. A lot of you already know what you might need to do a little differently. Like, you know, the boundary you may need to set, but you often just keep waiting for the right moment to do something with that information. And boundaries are simply limits you set to protect something that's very important to you. So you have to know what your non-negotiables are, what your top priorities are, and you have to be able to flex them when appropriate. Flex your boundary when appropriate. I always say that if you're holding a boundary, meaning you're protecting a limit you've set, if you are doing that 60% of the time, even 55% of the time, you are straight up winning. You are winning because you want to protect it more often than not. You want to hold it so it's not an exception, right? You want to hold it so that you're not always making an exception for the limit that you're setting. What could it look like to set a limitation around something important to you, like time at home, time unplugging at home after work? Maybe it's that you don't respond so late at night to all the emails. Maybe it's that you literally look through who is sending the email, and I'm going to say it, and how important they are. How important they are. And you say, I'm going to respond to that one, but not this one, not this one. Done. 5 minutes. Maybe it is that you don't take on every single request. You don't accept that. You don't say yes to everything right away. Maybe it's that you say, okay, the limit I'm setting, because I care about my time, I'm trying to protect my time, my energy. I am going to give myself 5 minutes to think about this before I say yes. I'm going to give myself 1 minute before I just respond, yes, got it, can do it. Yep, I'm on it. Yep, great. Thank you so much. And I know you all do it because I used to do that too. I still find myself doing that. I will be honest about that. Someone emails me, "Oh, we'd love for you to speak." Sure. No. Oh, no. Pause. Get 5 minutes. I give myself 5 minutes. I look at my calendar. I look at my priorities for the year, for the quarter, for the month. Does this align with these? It does not, does it? It does, yes, or it is a no. Thank you for thinking of me. Please keep me in mind for the next one. Another thing that you could try is to stop sacrificing all of the mornings, all of the evenings, all of the weekends, all of the vacations. Now, this is challenging. This can be challenging because so much of your work experience is shaped by who you work for. There's that book that talks about how the reason people leave their jobs is their manager, right? And if you're at a professional services firm, it's the partners, right? It's the principals. It's folks really at the leading the work, or senior associates. Anytime that you're managing someone, you are a manager, you are a leader, you have a responsibility. You're no longer an individual contributor. You're responsible for the development of those other folks. And you impact so immensely their work experience and the culture they experience. So when a partner or your manager protects their mornings, like you don't see them online before 7:30 or 8 a.m. They haven't told you that. They haven't said, Adivi, I do not email before 8 a.m. I would like you to be aware of this. Feel free to do the same. They're not going to tend to do that. They're just going to not email you before 8 a.m. They're also not going to say, Adivi, I protect my weekends because I care about having personal time and/or spending time with my family. And so I protect my weekends and I do not jump on my laptop. They're not going to do this. They're just going to do the thing to protect their time. But you will know because you're watching, and you will observe, and you will watch what they're doing and not doing. And then you'll think to yourself, so they don't get online before 8 a.m. And if I'm working mostly with them, I think that's my permission to not do that either. Okay. Like you paying attention, picking those spots. Again, these seem very small, but oof, if you've talked to people who their managers are on it at 6 a.m. and they're expected to be on it on the laptop working at 6 a.m., it's really challenging. So think about how can I create some more space in my mornings, in my evenings, my weekends, over vacation, right? Some people, when they take a vacation, they have their laptops with them just in case. But what they'll say is, I check my phone, in the morning, first thing, just to make sure that nothing has hit the fan. And if all looks okay, I don't check it again. People have my number. They can call me. Clients have my cell phone. They know I'm on vacation, but they know that if it's urgent, they can call me. And rarely do people do that, but sometimes they will, and you're still available. But you can enjoy your vacation more. And many people also say that if they don't check the phone in the morning, they're just thinking about it all day. So to give them peace of mind, they just check it real quick in the morning. They check the email very quickly. So these are, again, small things you can do. Small things you can do. And you can communicate a little differently, right? You can say, "Hey, I can do this. I can tackle this, but I can do it by this date. Does that work for you? If you need it sooner, let me know." Right? I can take this on, but we'd have to adjust some of the other priorities, right? So when someone else comes in with this new priority that you didn't know about, that you didn't plan for, or your team didn't plan for, no one did, but you're like, okay, well, we have to do this. So then that's a conversation. How can we adjust what we're doing so that we can make sure we are accomplishing this and we are delivering on this, right? But this is what I mean is that sometimes you're waiting for someone to give you permission and for someone to tell you, hey, if you don't open your laptop at 8 p.m. to finish something, that's okay with me. You're like waiting for the permission. You're waiting for someone to not be disappointed about that. You're waiting for it to feel more comfortable for you to do that. But let me tell you that this is what I have found is it is you who are probably more uncomfortable trying than it will feel for the person on the other end when you set that boundary. One, because you're not necessarily going to tell someone what the boundary is, right? And I am not talking about, and I do not support no as a complete sentence at work, unless you're talking about an issue with your own safety, okay, and your mental health. That, unless you're really talking about something specific, you're not going to respond to email with no. That's not going to be a professional response. You're going to have to add a little bit more to that email. All right. So I don't want you to leave this conversation, thinking, okay, I'm going to go set boundaries. And I'm just going to write it all out in an email. I don't want you to do that. I want you to think about, how do I behave? What are my actions? What are my intentions? What's really important to me? Everything can't be important to you either. And being very clear about what those priorities are and how you're going to protect them. But I will tell you, not everybody will like when you set boundaries. Not everybody will like it. And that's the point of experimentation, is for you to see, okay, what feels right for me? What feels really important for me? And how can I take a small step to implement that limit this week or today or tonight? But if you wait until it feels good to do that, until it feels easier or more comfortable, or you feel like, okay, now I think he'll be more amenable or they'll be more amenable to this boundary I'm about to set, it's not going to happen. You have to try and experiment and see how you feel about setting that boundary and how the other person will. And what impact it actually has versus you thinking the impact it might have, but you have no data to prove that's true. So you want to experiment. You want to get better by doing it. Like I said, boundaries are more uncomfortable for you to set than other people. You're setting and enforcing, right? You're not just setting, you're also enforcing. That means you're not always flexing, but if you're holding on to them 55% of the time, 60% of the time, you are winning, right? Some people won't even notice you've set them. Some people don't even notice because you haven't announced it. You're not announcing boundaries left and right. And I get it. There are amazing memes on Instagram and amazing videos and like hilarious reels. And I get it. It's not real life. It's not real life in a high pressure demanding environment. You have to know your environment, your workplace culture. You have to be very observant of what's going on and where you can really adjust and where you don't have any control. And then when you are in that realm of control, you're going to just go at that ruthlessly. And then some people, like I mentioned, may not like boundary that you set. They may not like it. They even the one day where you're not on your laptop on a Saturday, because there's some people who treat Saturdays like Thursdays or Mondays who are working all day, despite their personal situations, whether they have families or not. Some people do that. They're like, Saturday is a Monday. I'm working. I work 7 days a week. And for many of those people, work is their life, but it's not yours, right? So some people aren't going to appreciate when you say, I'm not going to the office or I'm not working 7 hours on Saturday. So what does that mean for you? What can you then do about that? So maybe you have a conversation, maybe you don't. But again, you have to use your judgment. What's feasible here? Who else can I speak to about that? Someone I trust on how to handle that. So ask yourself, how could I, maybe me, how am I getting in my own way here? With establishing some limits, right? Establishing some limits, which are the boundaries. How might I be getting in my own way here? What is the best way to communicate this? Again, especially if someone doesn't like it, if there's some issues there, how do I handle that? Being intentional about that. And what reaction am I imagining versus what do I actually know as fact? The best way to get yourself out of a catastrophizing spiral and worst case scenario spiral is factual information, looking at evidence of what is true and what is not actually true. Because you can't unknow that. You can't unsee that once you know that. And then ask yourself, I think this is one of the most important questions to ask yourself, especially if boundaries are really tough for you, is what will it cost me if I continue doing it this way? What will it cost me if I keep avoiding this? Now, I'm going to tell you that I talked to many, many, many people about this. And I'm going to shed some light on some calls I have, which is if you're not desperate enough to change it, you won't change it. You have to either be desperate because you see what's coming and it looks bleak, or something has occurred, something has happened, and you're forced to face it and you're forced to do something about it. Change often happens that way. I'm desperate. I feel like I have no other option. There's no other alternative. I need this now. I need to change this now, or an external force forces your hand. And what I'm hoping for you is that you don't let the external do that. You don't wait for that. It could be a health crisis. It could be a lot of people, when there's a death in the family, someone very close to them, they experience a deep loss in some way. Sometimes that opens their eyes and they say to themselves, I can't live like this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore this way. And then they start feeling like I have no other choice but to try to make some adjustments to my life. Because I don't want to look back when I'm 80, hopefully living to 90, hopefully living to 100, and say, oh, I just worked all the time. I didn't create space and time for myself, for people I loved, for things I really cared about. I didn't do that. You don't want to be regretting those things. And so if you need some boundary scripts, you can feel free to take a screenshot of this. I mean, there are a ton out there. I am supportive of using AI as a platform. I just ask that if you use AI to find some scripts for you for what to say, that you use your judgment, and that you pay attention to how you would say something and what is appropriate given your environment and who you're speaking to, and use your own voice. Don't take any of these suggestions verbatim. You need to be able to use your own voice. But like I said, being non-responsive to an email late at night is probably not the best way to go. And saying no without a reason, probably not your best approach, right? So find something else, find something in the middle. But know that communicating boundaries are not going to be long explanations. And I was speaking with a friend the other day who's a partner at a law firm. And I was telling her about how there's some movement of folks just giving long explanations about why they can't do something or they can't make a meeting, and it's I have to pick up my kid, or like I have all these things going on, and this like 2 paragraphs of an explanation, and I we were talking about this, and I said, people do not care what you have going on. If it's an emergency, of course they care about your well-being. But I'm saying the like typical things of you can't make a meeting, people don't care. Is there going to be a follow-up item for you at the meeting? You make sure you get that done. If you can't make it, if you can't do this at this time, tell me when you can. They just want to know things can get done and things are going to move forward. They don't need your explanations. That's you thinking you need to explain because you want to come across as I'm responsible. I've thought about this. I'm being thoughtful. And so I want to explain to you how this is difficult for me. People don't care. People want to make sure it's getting done and we're moving forward. Unless, again, you have it's an issue with your well-being and there's like a big emergency, obviously people do care and people want to know that or would want to know why you can't be around for a period of time. But generally, these over explanations of things are not necessary. And that means you also don't have to over explain a boundary, right? You communicate through, you can use your words, but they're simple and short statements. I can't make the meeting because I have a conflict, but I will follow up with so-and-so to see what I missed and to make sure we handle all follow-up action items. Simple as that, right? Now, if it's a critical meeting, you're leading the project, that's a problem. You kind of have to be there. Again, use your judgment and pay attention to the norms of your team, the norms of the people that you work with and for, and the ways of working. This is going to require you to be thinking bigger picture and making sure that you're not just thinking very narrowly about what you want and what you want to say. Think about how will this be received by this other person, and how can I do my best to make sure my intention matches the impact I want to have when I communicate this. So I want to leave you with one thing. I want you to choose one 5% shift. I mentioned honesty earlier. Preventing burnout for yourself starts with being honest with yourself about what is working, what is not working, and what I might need to take another look at and adjust, but making sure that thing you're trying to adjust is within your control. If it's not within your control, it's going to feel very disappointing and defeating when you can't initiate and actually execute the change because you don't have control over it. Right? So pick something within the realm of your control. Acknowledge, and I want you to hear this very carefully, acknowledge your strengths. Acknowledge that your crazy work ethic, crazy, I use that lovingly and respectfully, because I have that too. This crazy work ethic, your ability to push through and to be resilient and to be gritty and to be scrappy and to be prepared and to anticipate and be responsive and being so committed and to be a person people can rely on, people can count on, is incredible. Acknowledge those as strengths. But when you overuse those strengths, right? There's no limit to the use of those same strengths can cost you too much over time. So that's why I want you to pay attention to those things. When am I going into the red zone versus when I'm like the yellow, that's okay. But when am I going into the red zone? Or I'm overusing those strengths way too much. And I need to kind of get more into a middle ground. It's not going to be balanced. There's no such thing as balance. But, where you're able to flex it a little bit more. So choose one thing you will do differently this week. It could be that you choose to do one thing differently tomorrow. Look at your meetings tomorrow. Say, hey, this is one example. Look at your meetings tomorrow and say, okay, which meeting is going to require my full attention? This is very critical. I need to be fully attentive in this meeting and fully present. So which meeting is that? What's the second one, the third one, the others? Okay, I can kind of take my foot off the gas a little bit on those. Maybe that's your one thing that you do. That's 5%. Actually, I would say that's 15%. That's more than 5%. So that's a huge win. But think 5% shift, not 50%, not even 30%. Because big changes that happen too fast are too disruptive to your brain and your body. They're too disruptive. Your brain likes what's familiar and comfortable. right? Anything else is like a threat. I'm unsafe, and your brain will reject it. That's why brains reject confusion. They're like, it's too overwhelming. I don't know what's going on. I'm out, right? So big changes too fast are not going to be generally sustainable over the long term. But one small action you repeat over and over is going to have a more long lasting, sustainable effect. So if you decide, hey, I'm going to implement this practice where I look at my schedule each day, I think about where I need to be more intentional, where I need to be more focused. I'm going to start doing that and see how that feels for me, and do that for 2 weeks. If you try it for 3 days, it doesn't work. You haven't tried hard enough. You have to try it for a longer period of time. But just try one thing, 5% shift. Understanding that change that is long lasting is about tiny steps over time, consistency, and making sure that you are co-creating and you're creating the pace that you would like to operate at. You are essentially creating the type of life that you want to live. When you take the reins back, you get back into the driver's seat and you say, okay, this is where I'm at. What is true? What is not true? What is working? What is not working? Okay, here's the shifts I'm going to make within this realm of my control, right? That's something you can do. It is doable. It is feasible. This is practical. You can immediately implement something from this session. And that's what I want you to do. There's no, again, silver bullet, but there is one little thing that you can always do a little differently. And my goal is for you to understand that you have the power to do that. Any questions for me? We're at time. We're beyond time. It's 1:32. Any questions for me? And I do love these words on burnout and high achieving. Exhaustion for burnout, tired, fatigue, high achieving, exceeding, yes, exceeding standard, exceeding expectations, and Monisha, ambition. And that's the other piece to this too, is making sure that you can be, and you can understand that you can be as ambitious about your career and how you lead and how you work and what you can achieve in your career. You can be just as ambitious about that as you are about feeling good about your life. You can be just as ambitious about your well-being. All those things can be true at the same time. You don't have to choose one. You don't have to choose well-being over career. Like, they can coexist. It just means that you're going to have to be creative and adjust things so that it works for you, because everyone has different resources, different circumstances, different backgrounds, different behavioral patterns and thought patterns and emotional patterns. And so you want to make sure that you're doing what works for you, and knowing that evolving over time is natural and it's expected. Thank you all for watching. You can always reach me at adibvargas.com. And if you are catching the replay, feel free to make a comment and we can continue the conversation there. Thanks so much and have a great day.